In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate the break-even point for a company that sells a product, one that sells a service, and one that sells both a product and service. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Hey, I've got a question for you. Are you confused about how much money your business actually makes? Or if you're starting a business, are you confused about which product to offer to maximize profitability? Well, this video is here to help. In business, it's vital that you understand your break-even point. This is the point where you have covered all of your costs and you start making money. Break-even is not hard to understand if you understand the inputs, but it's extremely difficult if you just pick up a textbook and read about it. In this video, I'm going to show you how a landscaper, for example, makes money or loses money on 3 different products. Basic lawn maintenance services like mowing your lawn, a little bit more complicated landscaping improvement services like building a fence, and a combination of the two where your landscaper does regular maintenance of your property but also does more specific jobs along the way. If you understand how break-even works with these 3 examples, you'll be able to calculate break-even with your business. It doesn't matter if you are a consultant, if you're a landscaper, if you offer painting services, if you're a painter, or if you're a manufacturer. The concepts and the calculation are exactly the same. So let's just jump right into it. By the way, stick around to the end because I'm going to show you a back of the envelope way for you to determine how much your vendor is making in profitability off of you. All right, let's get started. Let's start off with the formula and definition of the components of the basic break-even formula. On the numerator is your total fixed cost for your business. And in the denominator, you have the price per unit of service or product that you sell minus the variable cost to produce that product or service. When you divide that numerator by that denominator, then you'll get the number of units that you need to sell to make exactly $0. Everything beyond that is profit. Units can be anything from a beaded necklace if you are a jewelry manufacturer to a consultant job if you're a consultant or you run a consultancy, or anything in between. Let's start off with the guy who cuts my lawn. For those of you that saw my early videos, you will note that this was an example of what not to do in business. He never billed. He always seemed to have problems keeping his employees, and although he did a good job, I couldn't differentiate what he offered versus what somebody else offered. Now, at the time, the pandemic had just started and he was losing staff. It was the end of the winter. Things weren't looking good. Fast forward, now it's July and people are feeling a little bit better about the world. There's still a lot left to do, and he is in fact pretty busy. Good for him, good for us, good for everybody, because he does a wonderful job. Now I'm going to make up some numbers, but these are probably pretty close to how he operates. He has a truck that he most likely leases. He has rider lawn equipment, which he most likely leases, or if he owns, he's making payments on it. He has trimmers, he has clippers, he has staff, and he has storage costs. He has to have a place to put all of this when he's done at the end of the day. And some combination of that are his fixed and variable costs. Now let me tell you what his fixed costs are going to be. He can't not make his truck payment. He can't not make his lawnmower payment. He can't not make his hedge trimmer payments, or if he owns his hedge trimmers, he can't not amortize those costs because at some point he's going to have to replace those. And just to make things easy, I'm going to consider the employees a fixed cost. So he has 3 employees, they make $25 an hour, assuming that they work 40 hours per week and they work 7 months out of the year. That's 25 times 40 times 7 times 4. So that's $84,000. That is, for the purposes of this, consider that a fixed cost. Staff generally, even though you can flex them up and down, in this example, we're going to call that a fixed cost. His storage shed, $1,000 per month, but you can't flex that up and down. You need to store your equipment year round, so that's $12,000 a year. And the equipment itself is $2,000 a month in lease and or payments. Therefore, that's $24,000 a year. So the numerator is $84,000 plus $24,000 plus $12,000. That's $120,000. And then there's the cost of gasoline. Let's say it's $5 per house. The numerator would be $120,000. The denominator would be $100 per mo minus 5. So the unit price net of the variable cost is $95. $120,000 of fixed cost divided by $95 is 1,263 mows that my landscaper has to complete before he actually breaks even on the cost of his landscaping service. Now, let's break this down further. He has 7 months to do it, and he has 5 business days a week to do it, assuming that his staff doesn't work on the weekend. I've never seen them here on a Saturday or a Sunday. That basically means for 7 months, it's roughly 140 work days. You have to get in 1,263 mows. So you take 1,263, divide it by 140 work days, and you have to get in 9 mows a day with your staff in order to break even. That actually doesn't look too good, to be completely frank. He either needs to raise his prices or find a more efficient way to cut lawns. Now let's get a little bit more product specific instead of services specific, and let's talk about a fence. Now my landscaper also does fencing, and truth be told, my fence needs some work. It actually needs to be replaced. When we bought the house 10 years ago, it was beautiful, but I found out later that it was done really badly. There was no cement or gravel in the ground, and the wood just basically got yucky, let's say. And so he came and I said, what would it cost to replace this split rail fence? And he came back with a quote. Strangely, he quoted it as a per post charge, but it's actually quite useful for this exercise. So let's just jump into the math of this one and find out what his break even is. How many posts does he need to install before he covers the cost of his staff? Now I'll assume again that he has 3 staff. They each make $25 an hour, and it's going to take him 8 hours to do the job. That's kind of what he said. That is a total staff cost of $1,263. He said he was going to go to Home Depot and get the posts there, so I looked it up online. And each one of the posts is $12. Each one of the split rails is $11. So 1 post and 2 split rails plus cement and gravel. The cement was $5 per post and the gravel was $2.50 per post. So his total cost per post is $41.50. If he's charging me $189 per post, you take his fixed cost of $1,263, that's the cost of the people who are building the fence, and you divide it by 189 minus 41.5. So his break even in building my fence is 8.5 posts. Now, is it realistic to think of fence building this way? Maybe yes, maybe no. He could have done it as 1 unit and just said his break even is 23% or 24% of the fence build, but this is actually a little bit easier for us to think about. One thing I didn't factor into the calculation, and I should, is that vendors typically get a discount at places like Home Depot, and it's about 20%. Still, no need to factor that in because I don't know that for sure, but I suspect it. The last example I'm going to give to you is the beginning of the year services that the landscaper provides to aerate my lawn. That's basically using an aerator, which is a little machine that punches holes in the lawn and deposits seed into that lawn. Now let's assume that he has that same staff of 3, which he does, and that same staff of 3, his fixed cost is $1,263 per day. Now he charges $500 to aerate a lawn at the beginning of the season, and that includes everything, including the cost of the seed. But assuming that the seed cost is about $100, then his break-even cost to aerate a lawn is $1,263 divided by what he charges, the price of $500, minus the cost of the seed, $100. So that's $400. Now you're saying, Jeff, what about the cost of the aerator? They run about $400. He's used the same one for years and years. I'm sure, given that he only uses it at the beginning of the year and then doesn't use it again, that costs maybe a few bucks. If you're actually to amortize it out over the cost of every lawn, a few bucks per lawn. But let's just assume, just to make the math easy, that the aerator doesn't cost anything. So it's $1,263 divided by $500 for the price, minus $100 for the seed. So he needs to do 3.1 lawns per day to break even on his staff cost to aerate lawns. Now, it takes him a couple of hours to do it. So if we're assuming he's doing 4 lawns a day, he's making a little bit, but not nearly the amount that he was making on the fence, for example. Now, as promised, I'm going to help you figure out how to calculate the profitability using break-even in reverse when you're working with a vendor so that you don't get taken advantage of. Let me start by telling you that I'm very passionate about green power. Not for the reasons that you think. It's just fascinated me my entire childhood and into adulthood that there may be a different source of fuel that we just haven't tapped into. And so from time to time I've toyed with the idea of getting solar panels on my house. Now, there was a company that is very well known that sent me a brochure, and I gave them a call and I said, would you come out and tell me what it would cost to solarize my house? I don't know what the term is, but let's just say solarize. And I want to be completely off the grid. So they came out, they looked around, they set up a follow-up appointment. They wanted to make sure that both I was there and my wife was there. By the way, that's never a good thing because there's no way to say I need to talk to my spouse if both the husband and the wife are there. That's why they do it. Put that aside for a second. She came back out, she said, Mr. Schmidt, the cost is $35,000 for the solar cells plus $200 a month in lease payments. Now that was strange to me because if I'm paying $35,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money by the way, why would I have a lease payment? And so she explained to me that while I don't actually own the cells, the $200 a month is really more of a maintenance payment because the danger of electricity and making sure that everything works as it should. But I didn't actually own the cells. And I said to her, so what happens if I don't make the lease payment? Then they take the cells back, she said. I said, and the words just came out of my mouth. I said, that's ridiculous. And she said, what's ridiculous? I said, the $35,000 is ridiculous, number one. And number two, the $200 a month maintenance is ridiculous. And she went through the math, showing me that if she financed the $35,000 at 18%, I'd eke out a minor savings in electricity over what the payment would be for the $35,000, and then the savings really kicked in. Here's the problem. Solar panels are super cheap. Solar cells are about 10 cents each, and there are 32 solar cells in a panel. So every panel has 32 solar cells, or $3.20 worth of electricity generating stuff. But she didn't know that I knew that. In fact, her position was that is the most expensive component of a solar panel. The rest is just boxes and plywoods and can be built for $20 or $30. That's a direct quote. But the magic is the cost of the solar cell. So I pulled up eBay. I typed in cost of solar cells. I showed her something that said solar cells run about $10 per 100. You can order them right off of eBay. And I said, I'm assuming that you probably get them for at least the same price, if not less than eBay. So the cost, the true cost of a solar array for my house is about $20 for the cost of the material. That's the plywood, the plexiglass, the painting, etc. Another $20 for the cost of assembly of all of that. That's putting the cells onto the plywood and making sure that they all connect well. Installation of about $100 per panel. That's getting it up on the roof, making sure it's attached properly. And solar cells of about $3.20. So the total cost per unit is $143. Times 32 units, that's $4,576. Assuming that you need nothing else, they were making $30,000 profit on me for those 32 panels. Now, there's some additional costs. They have to have something called an inverter because it's DC electricity. They need to convert it to AC. They need to make sure that the proper permits are in place and it's hooked up correctly so that the electric company doesn't have something happen to them when they're out working on the street. So I assume that was $1,500 more for that. So $1,500 for the inverter, $1,500 for the safety, and you have a cost of $7,576. Yet they're charging me $35,000 for installation for something that I don't own and $200 a month for maintenance forever. I actually said no to that opportunity and thanked her for coming, showed her the math, gave it to her on a piece of paper, and suggested that perhaps she should choose a different company to work for or a different part of the country where they charge less for the same thing. Gang, that's it. I hope you find the break-even formula analysis useful. If you have any questions about what I just put on the video here, make sure you ask them below. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and click subscribe and notifications below. That way you get notified when I post my next video. I post them about twice a week. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.